Welcome to Insightly. I'm Melissa McGinn.
And I'm Jordan Walker. We're your hosts on a mission to empower executives and business leaders with the knowledge they need to turn data into a driving force for innovation. Join us every episode as we share real-world case studies and provide practical tips to unlock the full potential of your business through data and analytics.
So if you're ready to transform your relationship with data, hit that subscribe button, because in the world of business, insight is power. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Insightly podcast. We are glad you're back with us. I think we're on episode 13, 14?
Something like that. I've lost count
I
at
have
this
too,
point.
But we're glad that you're with us. If you're new with us, we talk about all things data related to your internal business data, how you can use it to innovate, to drive strategic decisions. And we're kind of just looking at data from every angle. Today is going to be specifically about product offering, which I think is exciting. And especially in today's day and age when people are trying to get creative with how they offer their products and their services, and how can we use the data that you're collecting on your customers and your sales transaction data to drive further innovation. And we're going to try to talk about 5 different ways that we can, I say that because we might just talk a long time. Yeah. We'll try to make it through 5.
We've coached ourselves before this episode, so hopefully we hold ourselves accountable.
And I will try to keep us moving through them. But we're going to talk about 5 ways that utilizing your business data can drive innovation in your products. And I'm excited about this because I
love this topic.
Yeah. Like we talked about innovating and profitability, and it's cool and important.
I mean, that's standard. You should want to do that. Yeah.
And when you can be more profitable or make a service line or product more profitable, that's great. But this is like kind of the heart of innovation.
Well, and exactly, because like when you think about like major companies, like on this topic, I always think of Amazon. To go from being an online bookstore to now being like the go-to shopping department store, the grocery store, like to be able to order and get things within an hour.
Yeah.
Amazon is a perfect example of innovating within product offering based off of what they're learning about their customers. And I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit more as an example. But like when you're thinking about how do you grow your business, you don't always have to go look for different revenue streams. You can innovate with the things that you have based on what your customers need more from you.
Yeah. And I think that's true with every realm of innovation, because I think a lot of times innovation does start with what we already have and how can we optimize that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what you know and the customers you have already hold the answers to what you should do next.
Yeah.
But I think there's always and I think data can be overlooked because there's some new shiny object out there, or there's some third party data that you can buy. And I think sometimes that's to the detriment of the people you're trying to reach and the data you already have.
It's like the difference between, are you just trying to keep up with the Joneses and do what you see your competitors doing? That's not necessarily innovation. We also see a lot of decisions within businesses being made based on like gut reactions or assumptions or, hey, I saw this thing, I think it's cool, like we should do it too. Then look inward into the data to see like, okay, is it a viable solution? And if so, how do you appropriately do it so that your risk management, your risk is lesser if you've planned it out.
I think then you can bite off more than you can chew if you start to do it that way, because I think AI is a great example of that. It's like companies that have no data foundation, no infrastructure or governance or anything in place, they're like, oh, we should utilize AI. How can we, make that something that we can incorporate? And I'm like
we don't even have a foundation yet. Good idea. There's not a foundation. Let's start there. We've got to pour some concrete first.
Where's your data stored? Like, I think this is kind of to that point as like, let's start with the data you already have. And, we're strumming a 2-string guitar when we talk about this, because it's like, we always go back to, well, what is the data you already have telling you?
Yeah.
And I think it's maybe kind of feels boring in some ways, but it's really not once you get into the insights and the aha moment that it can give you. But I think it's like on the outset, it's kind of,
it seems cumbersome.
Yeah, it can seem boring, or like, oh, well, it's just easier to buy this data set from this other third party. Okay. But the first way that you can utilize business data to enhance your products or services is selling products better.
Yes. This is where I live and breathe a lot of times with companies, because you always want to be a lot more profitable in how you're going about selling, which means that you want to spend time on the customers that have the greatest return or are most valuable to your company or most valuable to the opportunities that you want to go after. But yeah, like this is the starting point of being able to innovate your product offering is based on how you go and sell it.
Yeah. And I think customer segmentation and like targeting is your jam, right?
I love it.
And I think that is also, again, very foundational. Like, how do we just sell what we're selling, but do it better in a more customized, personalized, targeted way?
Personalized is the word there too.
Yeah.
Like that is the point. When you have a good relationship with a brand or a company that you're purchasing things from, you especially in like a B2B realm, you know that you might be one of 100 or 1,000 customers, but when you go and talk to your sales rep or, business development person, you want to make sure that they understand who you are.
Yeah.
And the only way that sales teams can do that effectively is by truly understanding who their customers are. And so, yeah, I spend a lot of time with companies, just talking about how it's not about like, let's go after every single customer. What are the opportunities that we're trying to seek? What are the innovations or the directions that we want to test and validate? Who are the personas? Not the audience. Like target markets are huge.
Yeah.
Personas and little segments are where we need to like focus. And what can we learn about their attributes to help us sell more effectively, speak to them the way that they want to be spoken to, deliver tactics at the right time in the right place. More importantly, how do we spend our budget doing that effectively?
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the attributes that we could uncover about these customers when trying to figure out how to sell to them better. Because I feel like that's something that like, oh, that's great. Like we want to understand who our clients are, but let's talk about like what are some of those specifics that we're going to look for when trying to sell to them better?
Yeah. So what I typically, especially if you have a CRM system, I know we've talked about this in I think every episode at this point, but if you have a good CRM system or you have a good collection space for your customer data, even if it is a spreadsheet, you can go back and listen to our short episode about to spreadsheet or not. But what I typically look for first is one, sales transaction history to help us figure out, okay, are you or aren't you the right person for this product or service? When you get in there, you have your essential, contact information. What company do they work for? What is their job title? If your team has done a good job of inputting sales notes and like conversations, then maybe you have some customer service conversations logged in there to where you can start kind of diving in and seeing what questions they frequently ask. But as far as like the sales pipeline goes, some of the attributes that I also recommend looking at is look at how they've traveled through your sales pipeline within different deals. When did they become a prospect? How did they become a prospect? Did you seek them out? Did they fill out some sort of thing? What was their referral? How long did it take them to go from prospect to customer? What were those steps?
And how long did they spend in each stage?
Exactly. Because that starts to give you a way to plan.
Yeah.
If you can see, okay, on average, we've got 50 really good customer profiles that we could totally beta test this new product on. They typically became a prospect because of a other customer referral. Good insight, because that means that we're going to have to activate our customers to go find more like them, right? They spent 60 days on average as a prospect. Cool. You know that you're going to have a 2-month time frame of advertising and sales tactics before you kick it over from a new prospect direction. But then you can also use that to say, okay, if they're already a customer and it took them that long to go from point A to point B, could we set a goal and try to achieve that in half the time with people who already know us?
And I think it'd be really interesting. Like this is just an example, but like let's say actually one of our clients, they noticed the stage from proposal to like signed was really long. And so it's like they quickly went through the stages of interest and proposal. This is purely the sales cycle.
Yeah.
And then they were waiting in this proposal phase for like a really long time before they would sign or say no. And, I think that, and then even like, when are we kicking off the work after that? And I think it can bring to light a lot of friction that happens in that specific part of the process. How do we remove friction? How do we make this easier?
Yes.
And how do we make sure that, one, they're getting the right products or services, but two, that our processes are really streamlined and simple. It can be as easy as, hey, we need to digitize this proposal process, or we need to book the next meeting to review the proposal on the call. So there's small things like that that can be overlooked as innovation.
100%. And I think that's such a good point to make, because at the end of the day, it's all about creating a great customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a product or a service that these customers need, that they have been asking for it, they're already working with you in this context that we're speaking in,
Mm-hmm.
that is an easier sale to get them over the finish line.
Yeah.
But if we make it difficult on them, if we're trying to force a process that's not working, that causes a lot of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And it also makes it more difficult for somebody to refer others to you, because I know I've said it where it's like, I love that company. I really love their product, but man, they are so difficult to work with.
Yeah. And that can be a trump card.
Yeah. And especially if you're like, I don't have time to go through.
No.
So I think the customer experience factor is so important to highlight as that is innovation. And it's not always about like creating a new product or a new thing. It's more about optimizing your own house.
Oh yeah. And I don't know how many times I've been giddy because I'm like, that was so easy. I love that because it was so easy to work with them.
Those challenges are great to uncover.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have total control over fixing it.
And I will say on the data side, that's not something that you really even have to track, because it's like they entered this stage at this date. So as long as you have dates associated with activities, which is like I feel like baseline for the CRM, like that's not something that.
Have your email connected to the CRM, have your customer service tool connected to the CRM if you have it, log sales transactions to the customer profiles.
And once it's connected, you don't have to do a lot of that manually.
Yeah.
And then you'll just be like, oh, like I didn't realize that they were in this stage for 45 days.
Yeah.
So, okay, we need to keep moving.
Hold ourselves accountable.
Okay. So we talked about selling products better. That's very basic, but also can be very innovative. Second is identifying new product offerings. I think that this can happen without going through number one, but I think it can be very revealing when you're going through how do we sell the products and services we already have better. Then it's like you start to uncover new products, services, combinations,
packages,
if you will.
Upsells.
Yeah. And so this is more like, how do we use what we have to identify new products? And I think that this speaks like volumes to the gut. Like I think people bring new products and services to market based on gut more than probably any of these 5 things. Any experiences with that or thoughts?
When you're working with really passionate leadership teams that are highly visionary, that's where I see that a lot, especially if they've got a team where their leaders really do have autonomy to run the company.
Yeah.
If you've got visionary executives that are already thinking like 3, 5, 10 years down the line, sometimes you can get in that, oh, I have this gut feeling that we should go after this and I want to start working on it now.
Yeah.
As you were kind of describing this, though, I was remembering one of the first times you and I sat down and you were showing me the revenue management dashboard that InfoFluency has created. And you were just showing it to me. And then we all of a sudden just started, oh, here's all these things you could do with this.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of when we were looking at the product categories by customer segments and industries. And how we were noticing that there was a combination where there were the segment of customer profiles that we were looking at typically started with like product B. I don't remember exactly, but let's just say they purchased initially into product B. And then within a certain time frame, they would easily be sold product D. And that insight was really powerful because it's like, okay, well, why product B, number one? What was it about product B and not A or C, right? And then why D? Why was that the complementary product that they transitioned to later? How long of a transition was that? And I think in that conversation, we realized that there was a gap that could be sealed within the sales process of, okay, well, how can you maybe ask better questions on the front end? Let's go ahead and sell both of these together. Like, let's make a new packaged offering and see if that works to get the sale in sooner. And then we can find ways to increase, you know, value as we go along.
I will say too that I feel like a lot of times what happens is that you notice like a lag in your sales process, or you notice that something, like there's a common thread of why someone's not buying with you. And a lot of times that can be how you identify new products, because it's not that they eventually want product B and D, but they need product X that you don't sell first. And I've seen people, like companies that we've worked with, that end up acquiring a company that does product X as a way to, so the innovation originally started with their own data saying, okay, well, all these people are saying that they need to go do product X first, and they'll come back to us when they're ready for product B. You know, we should just sell product X because that perfectly goes into product B. We're getting all this language.
We're going to have a quiz later.
So let's start looking at how can we quickly start selling product X. And a lot of times that isn't from the ground up building product X. Like
it's going out and finding who's already doing it well that aligns well with your company.
And I think they started partnering with them where they would sell it with a commission and say, okay, great. You know, we have a partner that does product X. And then that way they can stay in that sales process and they don't just say like, okay, well, come back to us when you sell product X, because at that point you've lost that customer. Like honestly, once you just say, you know, good luck finding product X, let us know when you're ready for our product. You then, you know, the customer experience isn't great. And they're no longer really in your pipeline. And so, you know, how can you partner with and or buy if you're in a position to acquire a company that does something add-on or additional to your services?
I think in order for that to work and identify what is the product, that means that as a company, as a part of like your sales and marketing processes, we need to have a good feedback loop. What ways are you implementing a feedback loop so that your teams are learning more about the other product stack that a company might have that is relatable to what you do? But then also, how are you implementing, you know, just really good questions and surveys or one-on-one conversations to learn about like, so what else are you looking for? Where is your business going? What do you need in order to get there? And that is a very simple thing to incorporate that I see get left behind quite a bit when and it doesn't make sense when we're constantly in this stage of like, well, how do we do this more? How do we learn about them? Well, we go and talk to our customers. We ask them.
And I'll give the example from our business. Even though we sell analytics services, we were finding that people were having a hard time getting data from point A to point B in an automated fashion. And so data wasn't analytics ready. And we're not really in the business process automation world. We found a partner that does high level data conversion and business process automation. And, you know, I think that would be something that I have on my mind, like, okay, well, you know, now it's coming up in like we're using them in so many cases, because now I can say, oh, well, we can automate that conversion process for you. Then the data's analytics ready and we're ready to start working.
Which means that you can start working with that client sooner and you've just solved another problem that they probably didn't know that they had initially. So now you have like gold star service as a badge. Kudos.
And we get to bring in another company and bring them business consistently. And so I think it's just like a win-win-win.
This is the second time we've mentioned partnerships. And I think it's important to note that identifying these sorts of partnerships is innovation as well. Like that is innovating your product line, is by finding great companies to align yourself with. If you're not in a position to acquire, it doesn't make sense for your business.
Because that's a big
that's
a thing to just say, oh, I'm going to just go buy this. So I think that's why I said partnership can be a good first step. Okay, so we talked about selling products better. We talked about identifying new product offerings. Okay, third is bundling products for maximum value. So we kind of started talking about that a little bit, but I want to illustrate this in a use case because I think it'll just make more sense. Because I think people traditionally think like, oh, well, just like put your services together into a package and there you go. Like one of our clients had a variety of products and they sold into multiple industries.
Okay.
So what they started doing was looking at their customer base by product type and then by seasonality.
Okay.
So what they did was they started bundling together the products that oil and gas was buying, like these 3 or 4 products. They didn't buy any of the rest of their products. They only needed these 3 or 4, and they were buying them together, and they were buying them on a quarterly cadence. So then what they did, which I think this is the kind of innovation piece, is that they restructured their sales team. So the sales team then was assigned product bundles and the industries.
So then they became experts in both the product and the industry.
Yep. They knew they would be re-up to buy quarterly. They knew the ins and outs of everything to know about these specific products. They knew the industry. And so before, all their salespeople were selling to everyone.
Yeah.
Anyone who called or their accounts. And then they just moved all the accounts and then had a specialist sales team.
Yeah.
And they had, I think they have like 4 or 5 industries they sell into and like 20 or 30 products. So it's kind of like a lot for one salesperson to know. So I was like, that's super innovative.
Yes.
And they've already seen their, I mean, it's kind of an account-based model. And they've already seen their accounts significantly growing.
Yeah, I bet because that also means you have a better customer experience.
Yeah.
Because you know the acronyms that they use, you know the terminology that they use, you're able to learn more about their company to then tell them why this product combination makes the most sense for them. That's awesome.
And those are like physical products.
Yeah.
So I think if you're a service-based business, going back to how do you sell better, it's looking at, it's not just guessing like, oh, I bet a company wants, automation before they want analytics.
You can do the same thing in a service-based
Right.
scenario of, okay, well, maybe you've got a few different professional services. What makes the most sense? What is going to help them? It's the difference is where you have a product, they're going to activate that product. They're going to use that product almost immediately or get it implemented almost immediately, whereas a service has onboarding and a longer timeline in some cases and not always a physical, tangible outcome.
Yeah.
So it's just difference in like conversation and questioning to figure out like how do you plan those resources for that company? And that becomes part of like that product combination in a way of, okay, if you're here at this point in time and we need to get here, how do we go about this process together so that we get you to where you need to be?
It's much more
based on what you
linear.
have. Yeah.
Like the service is much more linear, right? Like it's, we're going to do discovery, then we're going to do implementation, and then we're going to do maintenance. And that's like, okay, over the 12-month commitment, they've bought 3 different services from you. Yeah. But you've kind of bundled them into.
It's like in my world, we would start out with, okay, client has a need to grow a certain customer base. And so we're talking about, it usually starts with, we need to run a marketing campaign. How do we go about it? Can you help us with paid advertising, strategy, targeting, all of that kind of stuff? Well, yes, but first let's analyze your customers. Let's do a target audience workshop. Let's define who this audience is. What are their attributes? Because that helps with targeting later. So there is a tangible outcome there. But then from there, we know the audience. Let's map out their journey. Let's align what messages make the most sense. Let's take a look at what platforms you already have and how they're performing. So then we can then get a plan that says, optimize these channels and go forth. And these are the things that we need to pour more energy into that is not resonating currently. So like that whole process is technically multiple services, but it's tailored in a way that if they don't have these earlier foundation pieces, that is where we start. If they've got the foundation, we're discovery and right into planning mode, right?
Right. And I think the only difference there is, are you building custom, bundles? Or when people say bundling, it's like maybe a photography business where you bundle like a mini session and a whatever, these amount of photos. It's more like we're still bundling our stuff. Yeah. But it's just
tailored to what you need.
What they need. Yeah. It's not like, here, go on our website and choose from these bundles. Yeah. Okay, number 4 is mapping product to customer type, which we just talked about. I think there's a lot more even insights we could get into on when you start to understand the attributes of the customers and then what products they're buying, that is like a huge unlock. Like, what industry are they in? What size of business are they?
Yeah.
What's the lead source? Like, where are they coming from? You know, how many employees do they have?
Who's the key decision maker?
Where are they located? Is there any geographical attribute? What are they? And then linking it to what are they buying? I mean, we could probably talk for
Well, mapping product to customer type is foundational in customer journey mapping as well. Then you're mapping out their journey. You're able to anticipate what their next move is next. So then you can continue the lifetime or continue to increase value of the lifetime of that customer.
You're giving away number 5.
Yeah. But then once you have that, you can then start to look at, okay, if I want more customers like you, let's go back to the very beginning and now go and test that out. Like you were just saying, if we know what the attributes are, what other companies within this industry category exist that we have not talked to?
Yeah.
Who do we already have as a contact that we just haven't engaged in a while?
Yeah.
It starts to unlock your filling the pipeline strategy, but then also like carrying the pipeline forward and just increasing its value over time.
I think we could do like a mini episode on
that,
but for the sake of time, number 5 is enhancing customer lifetime value. I mean, I think that is the undergirding of all the rest of it is like, right, we all want client relationships that last over the span of years, where we can grow that account, where we can serve them in different capacities, where we become a trusted advisor to them and they're with us. Not only is it duration, but it's also increased monetary value.
Yes.
Just increased exchange of value, right?
Yeah. The more loyal a customer becomes over time, increases their value with you because the less time you have to spend on trying to sell them the why.
Yeah.
They already get the why. Now you're pouring your energy into all of the things that we've already talked about. Like, let's discover what you need to get you to the next stage of your business. Or it could even be, if you're not ready, like, how can I activate you as a brand advocate to refer us to other great people just like you?
Yeah. And I just had this idea, but if you're in a place, you're listening to this and you have some really great core customers, but you're struggling to innovate or grow or know kind of what's the next step in terms of services or products, I mean, gather more data, like do a focus group, do 10-minute interviews with your best customers because they're committed to you, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a whole lot of data that probably isn't in your CRM right now that you could utilize if you're just kind of looking for, okay, what is the next step for me and I feel stuck.
But that's what I try to tell marketers is that part of our campaigns that we run and the experience that we're offering to our customers should help us find some more of that data. So, and it doesn't have to be in a, will you take this survey and we'll enter your name into a drawing for a gift card to Starbucks or something. Like, you don't have to do it in that way. It could just be, hey, do you have 15 minutes that I can steal from you? I just have a few questions. I'm curious to know your perspective on a few things. Like, can I share with you what we're thinking of doing? I've been working with a company where we have been interviewing their customers about a particular event and just asking them, what was your experience with it? Why should other people, participate? What do you think we could improve upon? What information would have been great for you to know before committing? We went in with some assumptions, but we also have taken away a lot of like, wow, that was a good idea of how we should market this. Because like customers were also freely giving us, you know what I think you should do. And some of those were great ideas. And we're like, just going to go ahead and write that down.
Well, and I think too, like just this, like we said in the beginning, like there can be this cumbersome, boring tag put on market research or,
it's my
data
favorite
analysis.
Thing,
It really is like the heart of innovation is dialing into where you're trying to grow, who are your best customers, and how can you just enhance that experience for them, make it better, and get more like them. It's as simple as that, right? Yeah. I totally get that there's companies out there who want to get into a new vertical or a new geography or something new. But I think for the majority of people, you haven't tapped the perfection of your customer experience, your sales cycle, even just the attributes of your best customers. Like there's a lot to uncover there.
Well, and if you have that foundation already and like you understand that when you do have those gut feelings of we should go into that vertical. Or because I mean, there are a lot of CEOs that wake up in the morning with brilliant ideas, you know. If you already have the foundation, though, it's easier to go after those gut reactions to test and validate than because the thing that holds us back is like if we do want to explore it and like really be thoughtful about, okay, well, what's the risk? How are we going to measure this? Like, what are the outcomes that we're going after? You might be wanting to get this implemented within the next year, but if you've got 6 months worth of foundational building to even get the data that you need, you're probably going to move forward with your idea regardless, and then wish that you had that data in the long run. So even if you're a company that isn't necessarily thinking about product innovation right now, maybe you're trying to find ways just to like improve company operations or whatever, use this opportunity to go ahead and start gathering those attributes and understanding your customer journeys, your most valuable customers, understand your product categories against customer types. Just get those persona foundations down. And just going through that exercise might actually bring up some good ideas that you haven't thought of yet.
We're seeing a lot of companies retroactively implementing a company-wide business intelligence platform is not really the right word, but layer to their company because they're seeing how anyone in any position might have an idea, but they want to have quick access to validation.
Which is totally the Amazon mentality too. I mean, Amazon they allow every employee to have the access to the data that they need so that if somebody's like, hey, I've noticed that the people who shop on Amazon hate going to the grocery store. We should look into acquiring Whole Foods and start selling Whole Foods through us as a grocery store. And then they do it. Because they have the customer data foundation. So they don't have to start wondering. They can actually go ahead and run projections to say, all right, that acquisition actually will be highly profitable for us. Let's go after it.
And that's, like validation of innovative thoughts, I think is not something that can just be like spun up overnight. Like that takes proactive planning and thinking. And it's actually some of our favorite projects to do because it's so exciting to bring all the data from the different corners of the business into something that is truly accessible. And brings visibility to everyone. But I think that requires a very forward-looking intention by the executive team with maybe a ROI that is not immediate. That is all the time we have for Innovating product offerings. But if you have any specific questions related to a use case where you don't really know where to go next or you want to just bounce some ideas off of us, please reach out. We love nothing more, if you can't tell, to talk about specific cases and brainstorm. hello@insightlypodcast.com is the best place to reach us. And we would love to chat with you. We will promise we will respond if you send us an email or even maybe highlight you on our next episode. But for now, that's it for this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good. See ya.